Coach Jessica. I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about emotional and compulsive eating. Now, obviously, the name of this group is Overcoming Emotional and Compulsive Eating. If you sign up for this, then there is some part of you that knows you struggle with one or other of those. But I want to clarify what they are. I'm going to start off with compulsive eating. Compulsive eating is not something that's often addressed in the eating disorder world. When we talk about eating disorders, most people think about anorexia, bulimia, or even binge eating disorder. Compulsive eating is a little bit different. So, anorexia is when we tend to restrict. A lot of times that results in a low body weight, but not always. Bulimia is anything that you do to purge your body or to try to undo an eating event. Some people really misunderstand bulimia. I talk to them about it and they say, no, I don't have any history of bulimia. And then they tell me things like, well, I've taken laxatives or I've taken diuretics. And if you really think about what bulimia is, it's anything you do to try to undo an eating event. So if I overate, or if I even perceived I overate, or I ate when I wasn't hungry and then I take laxatives, or I overexercise, or I fast to try to undo or mitigate that eating event, that is a bulimic mindset. So a lot of people struggle with bulimia and don't even realize that they do. Of course, there's also purging, which is the typical way that people think of bulimia. And then, like I said, the eating disorder community acknowledges binge eating disorder as an eating disorder, but they describe it as someone who eats a huge amount of calories in a short amount of time. It's really defined by the high caloric content. In my experience as a coach and as a professional eating disorder coach, I have found that you can binge eat any food. It does not have to be a high calorie food. I once had a client who said, she would choose things that were very, very low calorie, like a cucumber. She would eat 12 cucumbers in a matter of, 5-6 minutes. That is binge eating. It's pushing down as much as you can, most of the time until it hurts or you can't possibly physically stuff any more in. And so those are the eating disorders that I think the world talks about. The advice that those communities give for people who have eating disorders, I don't think is very good. It was never advice that helped me get well, but they do at least acknowledge those as disordered eating. I'm taking it a step further when I talk about emotional eating and compulsive eating or compulsive overeating, and I find these two things can actually be as big in your life. They can be as big in terms of obsession and addiction and controlling your life. Compulsive eating and emotional eating can be just as problematic. They can result in obesity, it can result in secret behaviors, it can result in shame, it can result in hiding. So therefore, they really are included in the spectrum of eating disorders. So compulsive eating can be two things. It can be, one, I get in my head this idea that I have to eat a certain food and I can't stop thinking about it, even though I know it's going to harm me. I know it's in the past when I've eaten it, I've not had good side effects from it. It may be something that it turns on more hunger. There may be all these reasons this is not something you want to eat, but you feel like you have this harassing thought in your head and you have to eat this thing. It literally is a compulsive thing. And I'll dig into tomorrow on our 10 o'clock call, I'll dig into why we do that, where that compulsion comes from. But for now, just understand that compulsive eating is something where you feel like you must do it. You have the thought to eat this certain thing, you feel like you must do it. On the other hand, compulsive overeating means I eat something, and it can even be something healthy. It can be something that's very good for you, but I can't stop eating it once I start. So this is where addiction really kicks in. There are people in even the keto community or the carnivore community who will say there's no such thing as food addiction, because you can't be addicted to something that you need, and that is not true. Food addiction means I can overeat meat. I know I've eaten a whole roast. I can remember in my past when I did Atkins in the 90s, I used to eat multiple packs of hot dogs. That's compulsively overeating something that was allowed on the diet that I was eating, but I ate it compulsively. Once I started, I couldn't stop, and that's compulsive overeating. And that can happen with, again, keto foods. You may find that you're someone who's sober in the sense that you don't eat off plan, you don't eat ice cream, you don't eat sugar, you don't eat grains. But once you start eating certain foods, you can't stop eating them, and that is compulsive eating. So sort of think about if that is your issue, or again, the most common thing that I see is emotional eating. And this is something that I think a lot of people struggle with. Some people do it a little bit and it doesn't screw up their whole life, and then other people are so wrapped up in emotional eating that it actually does cause them a great deal of difficulty, either emotionally or physically. And maybe you're someone who has been eating well for a long time, but you don't get results, but it's because of emotional eating. Anytime we eat food, and it's not because our body needs nourishment, we're eating it probably for emotional reasons. It can be boredom. It can be sadness, loneliness, tiredness, anger, celebration. But even eating healthy food for all those reasons, when your body doesn't need food, you're not going to get the result that you need. And so emotional eating is eating in response to an intense feeling that you have. It really is about feelings. And in most cases, the emotion is something that is negative. Like I did include celebration, which isn't necessarily negative, but your eating can be so entirely tied to a certain situation. Like I always eat cake at a birthday party, so you believe, therefore, I cannot enjoy a birthday party unless I consume this cake. And again, I'll dig more into that tomorrow. But emotional eating, why do we do it? Ultimately, it's because we believe that eating is going to solve the problem that we have. If I am bored, I believe that food's going to entertain me. If I am tired, I believe that food is going to make me less tired. If I am sad, I believe food is going to make me happy. And so I think it's really important. And again, if I'm lonely, I believe that food is going to give me company. It's really, really important for you to start to think about what are your top emotional triggers. And again, this is something I'll dig into a lot this month in the group, but I just want to introduce that concept of emotional eating and what a huge hold that has on so many of us. And the reason why we emotionally eat is because we believe that food is a solution in most cases when it comes to dealing with emotional issues. And I'm really going to challenge that tomorrow and talk to you about that on the call. Think about today, leading up to tomorrow's call, like what emotional situations do you tend to see food as a solution for you? Again, I'll use anger because that's a little bit more complex, right? Why would I eat when I'm angry? What do I think that food's going to do for me? Well, I think that if I eat and I stuff down this feeling of anger, I'm not going to explode on somebody, right? So think about that in your own life. I wanted to tell you the difference between compulsive eating and emotional eating, get you really just kind of thinking about that, and then I'll dig into some details. I also wanted to just, again, revisit acceptance, what that means. I revisited sobriety. Sobriety meaning I don't eat foods that harm me. If you're at that place where you already don't eat foods that harm me, maybe you're at a place where you say, I need to work on, I don't eat in response to emotions. So I mentioned, someone asked, like, how do you know what your definition of sobriety is? And we all start off with the same one. and that is I don't eat foods that harm me, or I only eat foods that nourish me. But you get to a place where you're doing that, and you may still really be struggling with sneaky eating, hiding and eating, overeating, eating in response to emotions. That's the next thing you need to tackle in your journey of sobriety. Sobriety comes in layers. It isn't just one thing. You continue on this journey and you peel back layers, and you get deeper and deeper into the point that you are free from food. You are free from using food for those things. So really think about where you are. Think about whether you struggle with anorexia, bulimia, binge eating, compulsive eating, or emotional eating. I know I struggled with all of them. I've had to overcome every single one of those things, and I don't do those things now. But it didn't happen all at once. It started with getting clean, and then I worked on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So think about what emotions that you eat in response to, or what you tend to, and what is it that you believe food does for you. And we'll dig into that again tomorrow. Tomorrow we're also going to talk about the voice of sabotage. We're going to talk a little bit about nutrition, because there were some questions about high protein versus high fat in the group, and I want to address that and who should worry about that and who shouldn't. But I'm happy to talk about that as well. And then the other thing I want to talk about, again, just revisiting from a few days ago, is acceptance. What does it mean to accept that I have a condition that requires me to live my life differently? And I think initial acceptance is exactly what it sounds like. It means if I can get to a place where I realize that every other technique has failed me, it has failed to work long term. It has failed to fix my problem. And here I am. I'm still emotionally eating. I changed my diet. You know, there are people out there that are like, just cut out carbs and you won't compulsively overeat anymore. You won't binge eat anymore. And it's not true. You may be very frustrated because you've heard people say that. Well, I just cut out carbs and now I have no appetite and I never overeat. Well, if you overeat in response to emotions, not being hungry doesn't stop you from doing that. So keto does help squash your hunger, whether you're keto, carnivore, ketovore. It does help squash your hunger, but if your hunger is not coming from a place of physical need, if it's coming from an emotional need, you can still compulsively overeat on a ketogenic diet. And I think that's the part that I can really help you through. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to our call tomorrow. I have quite a few things for the agenda, but I'm very open to anything that you want to add to it. And again, I do open up the last 15-20 minutes for questions, for interactions with you that you can ask me. You guys can talk to each other, comment on each other's things that you talk about. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope as many of you as possible will be able to join that. Don't forget, the link is under announcements. And it's always that same link. It's, unless otherwise noted, it's going to be on Saturday at 10 Eastern. And it is recorded here in the group for you to watch. If you haven't already and you are new to this group, or if you've been in this group and you missed anything from last month, those Zoom recordings right now, they automatically delete after 30 days. I we're getting there. I think on last month's Zoom, there was some really good stuff. Either go back and watch those again, or watch them now. You can just kind of scroll through the discussion feed and you can look for the Zooms from past weeks, and that can really help you, because as I said, I don't repeat the same group over and over. We're in a constant state of moving forward. So I repeat themes and I talk about them again because that's good for all of us, but then I incorporate new things too. And so there's actually a lot of wisdom in those old Zooms, and it might be a subject that we don't wind up covering in this group. So again, the more you use the group, the more you come in, the more you interact, the more you tell your story, the more you commit daily, openly to other people, the better you will do, and the more success you'll have. So looking forward to seeing y'all, meeting some new faces tomorrow, seeing some old people that I haven't seen, not that you're old, but old meaning I haven't seen you in a while. Really looking forward to that tomorrow, and I will see you then. Bye.